Hey everyone, it's Spencer with IDW Games, and today we're going to be taking a look at Wayward, the new board game by Jon Gilmour, based on the comics by Jim Zub and Steven Cummings. If you're not familiar with Wayward, it kind of does a modern take on the superpowered hero teens genre of comics. And what's cool about it is, with its like twist, is that it takes place in Japan, and the teens are fighting yokai, which are kind of like Japanese evil spirits. And it does a lot of cool stuff with that concept to kind of twist the type of monsters these kids would be fighting, and also the kind of more modern take allows the kids to have a little bit more of more modern problems that they're trying to deal with in their real life, alongside their kind of superhero growth. So let's take a look at the game. The game is a threat management game for 1 to 5 players, and each scenario in the game takes about an hour. So we'll pop the box open here, and first thing we'll take a look at is the rulebook. So the rulebook is got, on the first half of it or so, is stuff like component overview, and then we've also got, let's see if we can get a little of this reflection out of the way. We got, like, the gameplay elements and how the game is played. And then the last half of the rulebook or so is going to be the scenarios and the scenario setups for the number of scenarios that are in the box. So all these scenarios are unique, and what makes these guys cool is you can see here at the bottom they have like different tokens they bring into the game, which is really fun because it actually allows you to have a ton of replayability, and it changes the way you kind of strategize as you play, because as you level up your character and kind of spec them out, the way that you level them up and spec them out is probably going to change depending on like what the objective is and what the threat is for that scenario. On the back we have some clarification type stuff, things that just explain any questions that might come in, like edge cases. So let's pull this out over here and grab this next thing, which is, these are the scenario boss cards, like basically the scenario cards, and they give you the scenario setup as well as additional rules or rule changes to the game based on the scenario. So let's get these guys out here. And as you can see there, there is on this side we've got the setup, and there's a little bit of like kind of flavor text here. And it's telling you which tokens to use, which we'll get to that in a second. And then we have rules changes and the objective for the players. And you can see there's the giant spider is one of them. There's this dude, which is also the JSF, I think. Let's pull this guy down. This chick, and this guy, and this big scary skeleton man. All right, so there's those guys. I'm not gonna embarrass myself trying to say those names. I am bad with names. Even people's names that I meet on a daily basis, I sometimes stumble over. I'm stumbling over saying that right now, see? All right, so let's pop this open. These are the character sheets. I love these character sheets because if you're familiar with the comics one, it gives you a big piece of like cool hero art on the back. So if you're familiar with the comics, that's a cool just nod. But if you're not, it also gives you a character bio here to give you a little more information about who this person is. So what you'll see here is that there's 3 color-coded things. You have a special ability, and then you have kind of like reminder text on things you can do in your turn, plus your kind of life points. And then you have these kind of leveling up skill trees. You kind of able to actually, as you get skill points, you're able to buy into these trees, and they change basically how your character plays. So you can see here too that there's different types of yokai that we're going to fight in the game, and so she's actually like an all-around brawler, and it's just investing in which type of yokai do you want to fight or be better at fighting. And depending on the scenario, and this is what I was talking about earlier, depending on the scenario, you're going to know like, oh, actually there's like a lot more green yokai in the scenario than there are red. So actually this is a better skill tree for this scenario for me to invest in. And then this chart over here is the energy that this character draws from the weave. And you track this up and track it down as you fight. So basically you draw energy from the weave and then you spend it to fight monsters, which is something we'll talk about a little bit later. And we'll just kind of flip through. So although she, as you can see here, she's got these kind of, I'm better at fighting these particular types of yokai. Shirai has, see, I told you, bad at names. He has different things where he gets like additional rerolls when he's rolling his attacks. Or he has this feed ability, which is actually his character ability. And so you're actually speccing in a way to make his feed ability behave differently. And then Spirit Punch, which is another ability he can do. And as you can see here, the Spirit Punch is down here, and it's got a cost of 5, so you need to spend 5 energy to do it. But as you level it up, you not only get it cheaper, you actually start getting it to do different things, but also you gain kind of one-time use energy. So that's what these icons here mean, is that if you move into this space, you spend the skill point to level up. As you're moving up and getting better, you're also getting energy that you can use. And energy is really the push and the pull of the game, which we'll kind of get to in a second. So let's move on to Nakato, and you can see here he's got his abilities here and his attack. Same deal here. She's got her ability to Amy. She's got her ability to attack, and then also her special abilities. So the characters change basically. The characters have different special abilities, so they all have unique skill trees, which means who you pick is really important based on the scenario you're going to be playing. All right, so put these guys off to the side, and then we got this. This is the kind of weave board. This is tracking the weave around the edge, and the weave is basically something that indicates the in-game state. So if you ever get to this spot over here, the game ends. As things are happening, the weave token will go up, and if you get past a certain part, like these lines here, this yellow and this black line here, you can't go back. You actually can't ever go back, but you can also pull up. You can pull from the weave to grab energy if you ever need it, and that's what these numbers mean. So like, if you're here and you decide you want to pull from the weave, although you're going to be moving into yellow, which is going to change the kind of the enemies that you'll be fighting or the events that are going to be happening, you're going to get 3 energy, which again, the game's push and pull is energy, and we'll kind of talk about that when we look at the tokens, which we have next. So, big part of this game is the tokens that are in it and how they're unique to each scenario. So here are our 5 character standees, and pop one of them out real quick. You'll see they're very big. So they have a nice presence on the board. We'll just take 2 of them out, and we'll get to that in a second. Real nice presence on the board. And then here you can see on this side, we've got the tiles that go onto the weave board. And I'll just show you this, where this tile fits into this zone. So you can see that the weave board actually kind of tells you how many tiles are ever going to be in play. So as you get to certain zones, and you can see here that this has a yellow and a black like marker on it, that means that this tile is only out when you're either in the yellow or the black. Some of these tiles, like this one here, this white one, comes out when you actually set up the game, and it only stays out during the white. Once you move into yellow, this one goes away, and then this one would come over. So let's talk about what these tiles do real quick. So these tiles have a basically event text that you have to opt into. And why would you opt into that event text? Well, that's because you're going to draw this amount of energy when you do it. And energy is basically the resource you spend to fight. So you want energy to be able to fight the monsters, because as the monsters crowd the board, again, it's a threat management game, you need to fight them back, you need to close portals and do other objectives, and that all costs energy. But to do that, you have to opt into the event that's going to happen. I want this 10 energy, I need it, but I have to do what this says here, which it says, choose a location with at least 1 red yokai. All red yokai at that location attack. The active character must choose another character as the target of the attack if possible. So if there's 2 characters at a location where there's red yokai, when I flip this over, if I select that location, one of those characters has to take the damage. If I'm at that location, I don't get to be the one that chooses to take the damage. I have to give it to my buddy. So this stuff is kind of bad, but you're gonna flip this tile over, and you're gonna show that it's exhausted, and you're gonna get the 10 energy. Now, eventually you will exhaust all 6 of the tiles that are here, and when there's no tiles left to be exhausted, you have to refresh them. And when you do tile refreshes, some scenarios have things that happen on tile refreshes. So we will pull these guys up to the side, but you can see how these tiles having these different events, and those being unique to each scenario and the bosses of each scenario, gives the game a lot of replay. So we'll pull this off. This token right here is the skill up token, basically. And basically, one player holds it, and when they defeat monsters, they earn a number of basically XP. And they take 1, and then they pass this to the next player, and that player takes 1 XP, and then you share the XP as a pool going around until there's no XP left to be used. And when there's no XP left to be used, the last player who used XP passes this token to the next, so they're the first player to get XP the next time monsters are defeated. That way everyone's leveling up at about the same rate, and there's no kind of like alpha player who's making all the choices or fighting all the monsters and leaving everybody in the dust. And so other people are struggling to fight the monsters that are getting harder because that player is progressing the in-game state, or causing more powerful monsters to be generated as they're fighting them. Everyone's kind of moving at the same rate. So we'll go here. There's more tiles, and as you can see, the tiles have the the kind of boss art for the scenario. So it's easy to track which tiles you pull out. And these tiles are the tiles that are unique to those are the weave board tiles. These tiles are actually unique to the actual game board that go on there. So some of these are the proxies, some of these are like a specific type of monster that only shows up in a certain scenario, like the spider here, and this lady's tokens. And then these tokens actually modify the yokai cards, which we'll get to in a second. One thing that's really, really cool about this game, and I thought that Jim and John did a really cool job on this, and great job getting this implemented, is that these are the tokens that track on the character board how much energy you have. And they've got a like kind of double punch. So there's a little hole there. Let me grab a character board. As you push this up, boop, 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 you can see where you're actually at. How much energy you actually have, but the marker still shows you, where you're at and what that number is. So you don't have to go, oh, I'm here, and just at a glance you can tell it's 7, as opposed to like having to sit there and go, wait, what number am I on currently? So it's a nice little touch that keeps things completely readable. And I'll just throw that on the floor because that's what I do. All right, so let's move through these. So a lot of those green dudes. So this is the game board, and we'll pop this open. And what's cool about the game board is it's based on real locations around Japan that were done in a very cool isometric style. Jim and Steven did a lot of work to kind of get this looking right. And then you have the kind of like the wide view of the temples that in the market, where you can actually buy items that change the way your character acts. It gives them different abilities. And then you have like kind of a close-up of where like the yokai actually spawn. And these spots are actually designed for the cards to fit down there. So you can actually fit your yokai down here at the bottom so that you can stack them out, because you'll need to do that. Or you can fit them up here. I mean, honestly, there's enough space. And as you can see, when we put the board down, these characters are real big, so they stand up nice and tall on the board. So they're very readable from all across the table. And the final thing is you can heal at the market. And if you look at the top of the board here, let's see if I can kind of pull this down. There we go. You're gonna see this attack value, and this is when you're actually deciding to attack. You can move a marker up across this to say, okay, I'm gonna spend 10 energy to attack. So this actually is a way for you to track that, because there's a lot of math that happens in this game when you do an attack. Because one of the cool things that John did was basically he wanted to make a kind of a pressure luck style game where you can decide to take on a lot of monsters, but he balanced it in a way that you can really calculate the odds. So you can say, oh, I know that the highest amount of damage that could be coming my way, or the highest amount of energy I would need to defeat all these enemies is 10, but I only have 7 energy, but 7 energy is 70% of what I need, and what's the likelihood that they're gonna roll higher than that? And you can decide to kind of calculate that way, which is cool. It makes the game very strategic, and people can talk about as a group, which I think this game does a great job of table talk. A lot of people talk about what is the best thing to do next. That element really helps people wrap their heads around, is this a good play or a bad play to spend that much energy to fight, however many monsters you're going to challenge. Let's close this up. Tap the old camera there. Take a look at the dice. So these dice kind of tell you the energy that is going to be required to fight the monsters. And then they also have these like flames, which will let you know that if this roll lands, that damage is going to be coming back towards the player. And on these kind of clear ones, where it's just the silhouette of the damage, that's 1 hit. But in these filled ones, it's like a critical, it's like 2 hits. So let's take a look at the, so you can see there's white, yellow, and black. And these are all really important to point out. These are all weighted differently, which is why there's 3 different styles of dice in the game. So this one has a 0, 2, 1, 2, and 3s, and they're weighted, you know, I think there's a 0, 1, 2 2s, and 3 or something along those lines. And then this one's got 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. And this one I believe has 2, 3, 4s, 5s, and 6s. So let's pull, oh, and 7s, yeah, that's right. Okay, so let's pull these off to the side. And then these cards, these are item cards, which you can take a look in a second, but these are yokai. And you can see that the yokai actually have color. We'll actually pop the shrink on these guys real quick. Ooh, there we go, got it. This isn't gonna take as long as I thought. I was really worried for a second this was gonna take forever. All right, there we go. So you can see here that these guys are the blue yokai that we talked about. Ayane being able to spec in to be better at fighting, and then these are the red. So there's also green in there. So these guys have tell you what type of die they roll when they attack. They tell you which they're going to spawn at on the board. As you notice, the locations were numbered. They tell you the amount of like skill up points you're going to get for defeating them, and this number here lets you know what basically the results of the yellow die could be. It could be anywhere from 1 to 5. So that goes back to what I was talking about when I was saying that this game is designed in such a way that you can actually calculate. So if you were like, hey, I'm gonna fight 3 of these blue yokai. In this case, because these aren't shuffled, they're all the same. But let's say these were the guys at the bottom of the zone you were currently in, and you said, I'm gonna fight these 3 guys. You know, at max you need 15 energy. Now, you could say, I've got 9 energy, that's more than 50% chance of being successful. So what you would do is, let's just take the board real quick. You'd have these guys, you know, here, and we'll kind of pull this off to the side and get a little bit closer. You know, you would have these guys here, you'd be able to see that they've got their roll. You know, you're gonna have to, when you decide you're gonna roll to see what energy they are generating, you're gonna spend 9, and then you're going to roll 3 dice to see the energy that they are generating as a kind of a counter attack. And I'm not very good, so I rolled 13, which means that actually I am going to fail, and I'm going to take 3 damage because of these 3 criticals here. Now I know that I can. I spent 9, and I can actually divvy this out. So you would actually roll these one at a time. So you would roll the 5 first, and then you roll the 4, and then you'd roll the 4. So you'd roll them one at a time. And so what you would do is you would say, okay, well, I know I'm gonna be able to take care of 2 of these guys, so I'm gonna take care of the 2 of these guys, and I'm not gonna take, actually I think damage is same time, so I think you would still take those hits. I have to double check that in the rulebook. And then this guy's gonna be last, and he's gonna damage me. So that's how the game resolves combat. Again, it's really strategic because you know how much damage you are putting in, and you're spending, and you're estimating you're figuring out the stats, the statistics or whatever that how much damage they could possibly generate back. And one cool thing here is there are items that let you knock down the color of the dice they're going to be rolling. So in this case, you might use that item. I think the baseball bat does that. By using that item on this guy, he's permanently going to be a white die. So instead of rolling a yellow, you're going to roll a white, and then if he's got, again, let's say there's 2 of them at the same location, you're going to change that at least one of them to the white. So instead of rolling 2 yellows, you're going to roll a white and yellow. And that goes back to kind of, again, the strategy of saying like, oh, I have 9 energy, but if I use the baseball bat, if I go and buy the baseball bat, or if somebody trades me the baseball bat when they're at this zone, I can use it. So that's where the team play element of the game really kind of comes in. So let's take these guys back and take this off. Look at the items again. A lot of the art, by the way, all the art is from Steven, who does the comics. A ton of original art. The only thing that I think Steven didn't do was the board, which was done by Tony Vargas, who has done stuff for our Turtles games. So you can kind of see, got this, boop, pull this off. You can kind of see we have these cool character pieces of like these different items. And I love this style this game has. It's got a great look. And then the monster, more of the yokais. There's the green guys. So you You can see there's a ton of different styles of yokais. There's a ton of monsters. So that's where the game's like replayability really kind of comes through, is the amount of yokais that can be pulled out, the number of scenarios there are to play. Here we've got these are color coded, so each player actually gets their own color. So these are all color coded for each player. Additional bags for all the components once they all get busted out, and of course the standees clips. So that's an overview of the game, brief overview of the game, and a kind of a look at all the components in there and all the awesome art that Steven did for the game. If you are interested in picking up Wayward, it is going to be available on August 20th at Barnes & Noble's, but if you're going to Gen Con, you can pick it up directly from before anyone else, directly from Jim Zub at his booth, which is 1749, booth 1749. So I hope you enjoyed this overview. I know it's a long one, but there's a lot of stuff to cover. And if you're looking forward to Wayward, swing by booth 1749, pick up a copy from Jim Zub and get it signed at Gen Con. Thanks, guys.